It's Boxing Day here in Ontario. It is the first day of lockdown. And I guess Mother Nature took it as a dare when I said the weather was bad on New Year's Eve and, we'd be nice to get a little snow. Apparently that was a dare. It feels like there's about 9 feet of snow have fallen since I uttered those words. So if that was my number one, if that was my wish of 2020, I really wasted it. But it definitely has snowed. I'm looking at, so many of you, if you follow me close and pay close attention, that black book that I have that I write in all the time, I've left it in every airport, possibly every city that I've visited in the last 5 years. I've always got it back. This time I went a bit far. I left it on an airplane in the fall on my way from Indiana to Timonium. I left it in the front seat pocket of the airplane, and I never thought I'd see it again. I sent a generic email off to American Airlines. If you happen to see this thing, it's pretty obvious. It's somebody had given it to me when I went into politics, and it's from the Parliament of Canada. So it's pretty specific. It's not a run-of-the-mill thing you'd see. They found it and sent old Blackie back to me. But I had said to my wife, you know what I'd like? I'd like a stable. Can't see it, but I like a stable leather thing to write in. I do have a lot of notes that I write down from time to time, whether it be about horses or racing, or especially when I'm doing these videos. I write down a lot of notes about what I want to talk about and what I want to cover. During sale season, I have my sale notes here. Also, I have my iPad with all my picks in my book, so it's kind of an important thing. I was really surprised they got it for me, her and Ava and Ollie, and it's really, really cool. So I do have a little tickle in my throat. So it was a great Christmas for me. I hope it was a great Christmas for you. These are such ridiculous times. I don't even know how you judge a great Christmas. Health, that's a great Christmas. Health and safety of your family would be a great Christmas. If you're a kid, a white Christmas, I suppose, being able to visit family. We couldn't do that this year. It dawned on me, my parents are getting a little older now, and it dawned on me that they haven't seen their grandkids in over a year now. So that's not true. Dad and I went to Cuba, if you remember, last January. Somebody asked me to tell some stories. I think I tell enough stories. But somebody said, it'd be cool if Anthony could tell a story every week. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I have lots of stories. But when we went to Cuba last year, I don't know if I told many people this. When we went to Cuba last year, we arrived home just as this potential pandemic was happening, right? We saw what was going on in China. It's not going to come here, right? Certainly not going to be as bad as the people are saying. It's saying it was going to be. My father, I have known my entire life, obviously. And I've never known him to be sick. We're the type of family where if you got this tickle, in a normal day and age, you would just go to work, right? I remember one time I was driving and I had a real strong card of horses. And it was at Woodbine, and I was so sick. Man, I was sick. Drinking water, throwing up. But I had a great card of horses. I had a couple of my own in, and I was going. And I remember I was in like race 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 at Woodbine. It might even have been like a Boxing Day or something. And I was so sick. And, you're taking Tylenol, cold, whatever the hell you can jam into you. And I got to the track, and I remember I threw up in the shower at Woodbine. People are like looking at me like, I just got a stomach bug, whatever. I threw up about 5 times that day and felt like death had warmed over me. But I won like 3 races, and one of my horses won, so it was all for great, right? You get home, you feel twice as bad as you do when you went. You shouldn't have been out and about to begin with. Now you're competing, your adrenaline's pumping, you got that high, and then as the medication wore off and the winds wore off, I was just fit to be buried right in the backyard, and that's kind of how our family is, right? Go to work, and that's that. So. Now, keep in mind, this is before the pandemic. My father and I get home from Cuba, and you guys, I hated Cuba. You guys knew that because I like to eat food when I'm away. I think I'm like a big person jammed into a normal-sized person's body. I love to eat good food and whatnot, and I knew what we were getting into when I went to Cuba, but even I wasn't ready for horrific menus that faced us at Cuba. I envisioned it being similar to jail food. It was really, really bad. And, we get through the week, whatever. The weather was nice. The weather was beautiful. But it just was completely overshadowed by the terrible food. And we arrived home. My father was a little sick coming home from the airplane. He was sick when he got to the house. I never paid much attention because as soon as I got back, it was go, 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 go. He flew home the next day. I think my wife took him to the airport. She said, geez, your dad's sick, eh? And I said, he'll be all right. My mom told me he was sick for 3 weeks, throwing up. I know we all look back, and I'm sure by now most of us know somebody who's had COVID-19. We all know Jason had it, for sure. And you often wonder yourself, did I have it that time? I wouldn't doubt my father had COVID-19. And they said, oh, it's not in Cuba. How can it be in Cuba with all the tourists there? Come on. So, and there's tons of Chinese people and people from Europe, and not to say that they're guilty of anything or whatnot, but tourists, tons of tourists to Cuba the whole time. So as we arrive home, James ends up sick. They said he had strep throat, right? My dad was sick as a dog. I don't remember personally being sick, but you think back on these things and wonder, what happened. My father's felt great since then. I often wonder. I've been trying badly to get an antibody test. You can't get them in Canada now, so my doctor's a little bit of a stickler. I'm sure if I go to see her, she'll give me no. You're not getting one. I'm just gonna go to a walk-in clinic and get a prescription for an antibody test. I just want one to know if every time I had a tickle in my throat, it's not COVID, because at some point along the way you've already had it. I think a lot of people out there think that the same, and I think it is peace of mind for whatever weird reason. It's not like it helps or anything, but I am going to get an antibody test this week, just to see. Obviously, if I'm positive and had it at one point, I'm certain my wife has, so she'll want to get one. I said this to Jason when he arrived home from Ohio, and it was shortly after he was sick. And they're talking about the cases rising in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and a little bit in Ontario at this point. And I said to him, you're the lucky one. It's not that, and I know everybody said, oh, you can get it again. Well, of course you can, but there's also lots of articles that are written that say you can't ever get it again, or you won't get it for a year or 6 months or whatever. And the chance of you getting it twice, I would think, are a little lower than getting it the first time. So I had said to Jason, you're the lucky one. You're heading into the holidays, and you've already had it. And it was tough. I said it jokingly. I wouldn't want to be Jason and spend 7 days throwing up, but at the same time, it was I just got to be so careful what I say. It was a wake-up call for a lot of people close to Jason. One that thought after he had the symptoms he had that maybe they had it at one point. Keep in mind, nobody else in our barn in Ohio got COVID-19 after Jason. I think I know why. Pretty sure the whole barn maybe had it before Jason. Now, I wasn't around Ohio very much. I'd drive and maybe stay there a few days, but I would go to the barn, do my work, and leave. I always had somewhere else to be, whether it be Indiana or Pennsylvania. So I didn't spend much time in Ohio. But all these things are going through my mind as as we see the numbers climbing in Ontario. Now a second lockdown happening, and you're saying to yourself, how didn't I have it? So I'm going to get an antibody test this week and see if in fact I did. But right now, it has nothing to do with the little tickle I had or whatever. I'm fine. But at the same time, we live in a strange world. So, as I said, we're in the middle of a lockdown. Now, this does mean somebody had asked me yesterday, geez, Anthony, how long do you think it'll be? I think it was just a generic question. I certainly have no medical degree, but I don't think anybody truly knows. The question I had and the concerns I had about the reports that I heard directly from the politicians were, they said, we're looking at a 28-day lockdown, and we're going to closely monitor the numbers during that time period. That is not a 28-day lockdown. That is a 28-day lockdown with a very fluid ending by the sounds of things. So if they don't see the numbers come down to where they'd like to see them at 28, what would stop them from saying 35 or 42? So, and I don't blame them for that. Listen, get it under control, I suppose. It's terrifying a lot of people. It's filling up our hospitals. It's killing people at a record rate. So I'm certainly not I'm certainly not calling into question their motives. What I am saying for the stable.ca is that we have a number of horses that are racing. You'll see, yes, is Indigo. He's leaving. Now he's going to be short shipped. What I mean is he's going to be leaving our barn and going directly to Tim Twaddle's barn virtually to race. Some other horses will be leaving shortly thereafter. We're looking at a negative test for our horses. Before all this took place, we still had that Strangles test to get taken in Shed Row 5. If those horses come back negative, which I assume they will, we're looking at potentially Off-Road Hanover, One My Heart Hanover leaving. Then when you look at Kevin's barn, if we can get a couple of these fillies sold or moved around, Miss Brampton Beast should probably go somewhere. Kevin's had her ready for a while. She looked great the other day. There's a filly, if it's an Elmer's a 3, in a number of places, probably can do some damage in Northfield and or Pennsylvania. But we have Need Your Opinion, who jogged the other day and looked great. Beach Boutique, who looked great the other day again. And people said Bottle of Red kind of flattened out. How can't she? It was her first start in like 8 weeks, aside from a qualifier, coming off a canceled card. So how tight could she possibly be? Any one of these 3 fillies, I would like to move a couple of them along. Bottle of Red's been on the sale block for a while, and I suspect somebody's going to jump on her. We were offered some money for Need Your Opinion, but I left it up to the 2 owners, the 2 majority owners right now, to decide whether they're going to move. So that leaves likely Miss Brampton Beast heading to Northfield Park, I suppose, for a little bit. Brave World, there's a $30,000 claiming series in Miami Valley. Now, my only concern is the same concern we had when we sent Simba. Is he good enough? I don't know if he's in a 30,000 claiming series level. Right now, we paid a lot more money than that for him, but at the same time, it is what it is. I mean, if we sent him down there and he could do, geez, that's a good place for him. So I suspect Brave World will be going to Ohio. You may ask who. Billy Rhodes had said that he is going to race some horses in those series. So we'll probably see Brave World end up at Billy's place, potentially Miss Brampton Beast. Jesse Balboa, now the non-winners of 1, non-winners of 2 at the Meadows, have cracked down on people outside of PA having any ownership in horses. So we had a little window where things were working out good. We were getting our horses in the condition claimer, non-winners of 1, non-winners of 2. They've switched those horses to PA owned or sired. So as they switch gears, we will also. One My Heart Hanover has been ready to go for a while. Mario trained her up as best he could on Christmas Eve, I believe. She's probably short a big mile, but not much we can do about that right now. When we get that negative test from her, I suspect we'll go a pretty decent mile with her on, say, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. She'll race the following Tuesday at the Meadows in a perfect world. Now, a lot of things have to happen. We have to be able to get the Coggins back. First, we have to get a negative Strangles test. Then we have to get a Coggins and health papers drawn. Then we have to have them back in such a manner that we can ship them out to race. So a lot of things have to go on perfectly before these horses can go. Jesse Balboa likely end up at Northfield Park. There's no reason not to continue to race him. Geez, he was racing so good at London and had that carpet ripped out from under him. I don't really want to rest Jesse Balboa right now. He's sharp as a tack. So he'll likely go to Northfield Park. What about Holy Chick? She's an Ohio sired filly, qualified in 2-2. She may also head to Ohio. That's not a certainty. That's a possibility. Off-Road Hanover has been ready to go. I know my clients on the horse, we've been waiting long enough to see Off-Road Hanover race. Now, I don't think somebody said, what about going to Freehold? Great idea, but when I looked at the condition sheets, there's only non-winners of 2 that goes for $4,300. I mean, he'd have to win 3 starts for us to make any amount of money. So it's not, I mean, if we're sending him there to sell him, fine, but I think that racing for $6,000 or $7,000 at likely Northfield Park again makes more sense. Now, obviously, you're going to say to yourself, Anthony, we got Rooney Blue Chip, we'd have Jesse Balboa, and now Off-Road Hanover kind of filled up with maidens. I don't know if they'll all get in. Rooney Blue Chip drew the 8-hole on Tuesday, and David Lake is driving him. A new guy, doesn't know the horse. I'm skeptical of how things will go for Rooney Blue Chip from the 8-hole, where another horse that's been on the selling block for quite a while. So we have Rooney, Miss Brampton Beast, Yes is already there. Brave World is likely going to Ohio. As I said, Jesse Balboa, Holy Chick, their possibilities. Off-Road Hanover. These will be contingent on Jesse Balboa likely go, but the rest of them going will be contingent on moving Rooney Blue Chip. They write 2 or 3 maidens a week, but again, want to be able to get this guy moved. One My Heart Hanover, as I said, would go to Tim. She's PA bred. So she falls under that umbrella. We don't have to worry about kind of trying to sneak her in. And then what are we going to do with Watch Avenue and Zeb Sunshine? They're ready to go right now. They were going to race at London or Flamborough, so they can head towards Northfield or I'd have to ask Tim. They may not fit in the Non-Warsha 2 or the Condition Claimer. It may not be a good spot for either Watch Avenue or Zeb Sunshine. So these are the things going on in my head right now. I'm happy Christmas is over, but it's back to work full bore. So we have Yes, who's leaving for sure. He's in to go on Wednesday. Brave World, Miss Brampton Beast, Jesse Balboa, Holy Chick, Off-Road Hanover, One My Heart Hanover, Watch Ab, and Zeb Sunshine. None of these horses are certainties except for Yes and Brave World. The other ones are, I'm pretty sure. Jesse Balboa's probably got a check mark beside his name. But next, what do we do with Miss Brampton Beast, Zeb Sunshine, Watch Avenue, One My Heart Hanover, Holy Chick, and Off-Road Hanover? I don't know. We're going to have to see. So those will be coming up in the very near future. Racing right now. We got a lot of horses still racing in the States. West 52nd is racing for Jim King in Dover. We gave 3 weeks off to Cavill Hanover. He'll be back in the new year at Yonkers. Now, Yonkers is another thing. Do we send some horses that way? Stonebridge Simba fits a number of classes there. There's a number of horses that can move there. But for right now, Bottle of Red, Oso Pine, and White Tiger raced great last week. Hunter Myers did such a good job, I really wasn't going to go to Meadows. I said, why would I? Hunter's got a good feel for them now. He's a kid that's shipping in from Northfield, so it's not like he's going to pick over Tim's horses. It was a good fit, but Hunter is on vacation this week. So with Yes being added to the mix and those horses entered in to go, Tiger Pine, just Yes, White Tiger, and also Pine, then it was a go. Bottle of Red will probably be entered a few days after that. I don't know what the holiday schedule looks like for the Meadows, but she'll be entered the next week. We have Simba and Simba racing Sunday at Northfield Park, and Rooney Blue Chip is also racing Monday. So a lot of question marks. Where are these horses going to go? Are they going to go? What are we going to do? It all revolves around the fact that I'm not sold on it being 28 days. I'm not sold on it at all being 28 days. Now, after 28 days, if they decide, hey, we're not where we want to be, does that mean you start opening up some places? I'm still shocked that they're allowing the Toronto Maple Leafs and all the Ontario teams to play, yet a sport that's proven to be safe. Horse racing is on the shelf. I know Jim Lawson was very disappointed, and I'm very disappointed also. They singled out horse racing as being shut down. Singled it out in Ontario. Why? There's been lots of cases in horse racing in Ontario of COVID-19, but zero residual cases. What I mean by that is somebody would go to the paddock. Then a couple of days later, they find out they tested positive for COVID. They have to alert Woodbine. Say, hey, I was in the paddock. Okay. Woodbine alerts everybody. I was alerted once. Jason was. All our staff was. Not another single case from that original case. So that says a lot about the safety protocols that Woodbine has put in place. So why single them out? I just don't get that. So very disappointed with the government in that regard. I think everybody in this industry is. But again, this is a fluid situation to the point where the vaccine is now arriving, right? We see some sort of a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just impossible to argue this fact. There's nobody to argue it to, and how would you ever win it? When safety comes into play, safety comes into play. And I think that this is just a really unfortunate incident. And we're going to have to, as I say all the time, play the hand that we're dealt. Now, we have we have a number of other things to discuss also. Our staking is coming up in February. Now, it's still a ways off. It's certainly not upon us. But at the same time, specifically looking at Ohio, and I wanted to show everybody, I'll get Amy or Kelly to send out the graphic of the Ohio fairs, how many of them there are, and how much it costs to enter them all. I think it costs maybe $500 to enter one, and you're eligible to a couple other ones. I want to enter them all if I can. And the biggest reason being, last year, a lot of people in Ohio didn't notice because our summer ended up pretty good. Our horses ended on a pretty strong note, but they were all sick in July. They didn't have to race during that heat that a lot of our horses have struggled with, and a lot of everybody's horses struggle. And it poses a real problem. The first year we had a great year in Ohio. 2 of our colts ended up being on Lasix at the end of the year, our colt and a filly. I don't really want to see that happen again, and I think July plays a real role in that. the allergies, the heat, the running, the rat race, the running around. I think it plays a big role. So I want to make sure that this year in July, if we have any horses with serious allergies and sickness, they don't race in July. Subsequent to that, if we have horses that maybe have mild allergies but aren't quite as good as they were when we first started them, you see that little dip in July. You guys know what I'm talking about. You see it every single year in every jurisdiction we race in. And I know it's our horses because they're our horses. How do we alleviate that? Made the fair program. We can go and race against horses that are simply inferior. And that sounds arrogant, but when we have our stake horses rolling and they're good, I mean, just look at the year we had at the fairs, right? Not only can we race at the fairs, we can pick and choose which fairs we want. If we're paid into all the fairs, we can pick wherever we want to go, what day we want to race, where it's at. We can make that lead up to a perfect training schedule for our horses, leading into hopefully a stronger August. These are things that I'm thinking about also when it comes to our Ohio program this year. We have the ability to tailor our program for our horses. If we don't want to race in the Buckeye in July, maybe our horses had a good outing the first Buckeye, and they said, or hopefully a sire stakes. Say to yourself, geez, I don't want to run down to Scioto. It's 105 degrees down there in the boiling heat. The horse scoped with a little bit of mucus and redness in his throat or her throat last week. Why don't we just go to a couple of fairs and miss that one? That's an option we can do. For the people out there saying we can't afford to miss any, well, if you go out and finish fifth when you should have finished first or second, you absolutely could have afforded to miss that particular event. So these are the things I'm looking at doing this summer. I've talked about this for 2 years, this July racing, how I just don't think it's very productive for our horses in general. And people can race in July all they want, and we've had some horses that have raced good, but we really need to take a seriously close look at how our horses operate and how they scope in the month of July. If they qualify good and they race good in June or the first part of July, then you go into that second week and then you go to scope them either training up or in that second stake race, and they have that allergy mucus or they're sick. I think we just shut it down for a few weeks and go easy. And I think that's the best way to approach that. So how do we look at our stake program in Ohio? I think we have the ability. It might cost us a few extra dollars to stake them to all the programs. Instead of being $500 or $600, it would be $15 maybe. But at the same time, I think the benefit of that goes without saying. So those are other things that we're trying to do for the 2021 season. But most of all, it's still 2020. I'd like to focus on what took place. I sat in bed this morning. We gave everybody Boxing Day off. Horses, humans, everybody. Well, they had to go in and pick their stalls out and set out their feed and whatnot. I sat in bed and watched races from this year, right? And I love, it's not about me watching me. I love watching the horses compete and how they did this year. And I want to look back also on what we had, whether it be the Jugette win from Oso Pine or whether it was that win in Delaware that just seemed innocuous, just odd and off the wall. But the way Jazzy Judy conducted herself in 2020 still brings a smile to my face. And James and I were talking about it last night, and I think the consensus from James or other people or some of you is, and I've heard this before, is that maybe our 3-year-olds don't show up as well as their 2-year-olds. And he says, well, maybe it's we race them too hard at 2. Okay. Or maybe it's just they're as good as 2-year-olds as they'll ever be. I would rather take that as a positive, as a feather in our cap, and say we have our horses ready and trained down in such a fashion that they are ready to go into their racing career as 2-year-olds. And that's not always the case, but when you see Globetrotting, she looked as good at 2 as she did at 3. Yes is anomalous. He looked better at 3. Now he's starting to look like a much more mature horse at 4. Had he not had that minor injury at the first start of his 4-year-old season, we would have maybe seen a much bigger, stronger, matured Yes, but at the same time, I think he's well on his way to becoming that. He was a horse that did not. He matured a lot from 2 to 3. But at the same time, he was good. White Tiger set a world record at 2. Lawmaker was great at 2. West 52nd, that last start of his 2-year-old season was a very, very good mile. And then he came out guns blazing in that mini-series, the start of, I think, his 3-year-old season. The one Yes was in, and he set the world record. So I still want to take a look at what we've done in the past, and then it also helps me project what we should do for the future. I think our training program is solid. I think it's sound. I think the fact that we get well over 90% of our 2-year-olds to the races is important, not just for me as a trainer, but for breeders out there and our clients that are looking to us to do the best job we can. And that's what I had tried to explain to James, and I think even he was a bit surprised with the answer. Is that I don't think it's that we're too hard on the horses. I think we're just hard enough on them. I think that we're building athletes. We're building a future for athletes moving forward from all different aspects and all different breedings, all different price ranges, all different sales. And I think that goes a long way when it goes to the stable.ca and what we've done and how we conduct ourselves. So, although it is a time to reflect, we are in the holiday season. I'm still full of cheer myself. It is important to look forward at what we're doing and help map some of that with the past that we've had. So I think that's where that fair program has come in. We had a great season at the fairs this year. And there's a lot of people out there that just look at them generally and say, $4,000 or $5,000, $10,000. They don't go for anything. It adds up. Ask the clients of Miss Meringue. That filly wasn't a stake filly this year, but she still put away $20,000-$30,000 and learned how to be a good horse all at the same time. And there's nobody more than me cheering for her to come out and be a killer at 3, just to prove that what we did at 2 was important for her. So that is it. That is the opening this week. Now, this week's going to be a little different. We didn't have any of our horses racing. No real point in talking about that. We talked about that last week, and they haven't raced since then, right? I gave you guys a video of how the horses in Pennsylvania raced. West 52nd the week before. Stonebridge Simba. So our barns are changing quite a bit. Is there much point bringing you an update on our horses? The last video I gave you was heading into the Christmas week. Not much has changed except the rosters have changed. Now Kevin, again, we had talked about last week how Kevin was maybe going to step away from racing a little bit and focus more on training the horses back and being a real pivotal role in getting our horses ready to compete at 3 and 4 and beyond. He's since waffled a bit on that and said, I'm gonna see how it goes. And I'm glad. I'm really happy to see him continue on down that road, because he is a big part of the stable.ca and plays a big role in the stable.ca. But when it comes to what is taking place now with this lockdown, we do have some horses that are moving. I don't exactly know who they are, and they won't be able to leave this coming week, except for, yes, his paperwork is done. He'll be leaving early this week, but the other horses, we have to do the paperwork on them, and they'll be maybe leaving shortly thereafter, but I'm not sold yet on a couple of them. I just want to talk to Billy Rhodes, Tim Twaddle, and see what they think about these horses and whether they do them some good also. So that's it. That's what's going on right now in my mind. But overall, don't forget, it's December 26th. We just got through Christmas. It was a different Christmas, but at the same time, it was still Christmas. I had a great Christmas with my family. I hope you guys did too. We are going to have a fantastic 2021. I can't wait for it. I will talk to you all very soon. Merry Christmas, everybody.